Your second stimulus check could be coming to you, yes, if two things happen over the next couple of days. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoons LALATE with really good news. Yes, good news. As new developments developed overnight, and I have breaking details right in front of me about what went wrong on Friday and why two things that will likely happen in the next couple days get the parties back to the table and get your stimulus check in your pocket. Let me get right to it. This is Afternoons with LALATE, always at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. It's followed by Hazard Pay at 4 o'clock, FPUC at 4:30, and rent assistance at 5 o'clock or 5:30. My math is all off. Who cares? I'm here for the good news. The good news is that your stimulus check hopes are not dashed and that you still will likely and potentially will get your second stimulus check of about $1,200 sometime this month. Let me get right to the details. There were two items that I identified in statements obtained by LALATE overnight that suggested why you did not get your check and why the negotiations at the table of the four people involved went awry, and how that's going to change very quickly. First of all, let me go over the check amount to recap. A $1,200 second stimulus check was approved by the four persons that be. That check was intended to be provided to all individuals, whether on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, or Veterans benefits, whether or not you are an adult dependent or a minor dependent, a big improvement over the first Stimulus Cares Act. Were to be given to you under the Democratic plan, even if you're behind on child support would not be taken out of the second stimulus check under the Democratic plan, and would be provided to at $1,200 for dependents under the Democratic plan, which it appears that the Republicans were on board for. The check was to arrive to you was to be sent to you 7 days electronically after the bill became law, which by my calculation would be electronically about 10 days after being sent out from the IRS. And if you receive your benefits by a paper check, or if you have anything set up with the IRS that's simply by paper, not electronic, you would be about a week later. Now, as we sit here in early August, there is still really big news about how you could get those funds still in the month of August, not even in September, but in August. Let me go over with you where this good news is. And I want to say to you right now that if someone drops in the comments and says it's good news when I get the check, otherwise shut up, then go to the other side of the room, because this is not for you. The backstory has now become the front story. And unfortunately, that's the situation. So we know what the check amount is. We know who's going to get the check. We know where the check is going to land. We know the routing times of the check. We know who's eligible for the check. We know that the parties agreed upon the check. We just know that the check is being held ransom by all this other mishigas. So what is the mishigas? What's that scarf that's strangling your check from going off into the mail? It's not Javita Carranza's scarf. Let me tell you what's going on. There were two items that held up the delivery of your check, LALATE has determined. One was a massive bailout of states proposed in the Democrats' HEROES Act that the Republicans did not want to agree to, and that basically ate up nearly $1 trillion of stimulus package money and made the package balloons to look very large when your stimulus check is not a very big cost item in the stimulus package. More about that item in a second. The second item that stranglehold your check from being sent out and delayed the stimulus check negotiations from being formalized was this. It was the president's belief that he could do a lot of things by executive order, which he cannot. And ultimately, he will find that out in about a week from now. And at that time, the parties will get back to the negotiating table. What are you talking about, LALATE? This is so juicy. This is more like a moment on Jersey Shore. It's like, okay, I know this is coming up, so here we go. Let me tell you what's going on. When people negotiate, they think they can get things done if the negotiation skills aren't very good, and that's what happened with Mark Meadows. He thought he can default back to executive orders if he couldn't get things done, and Nancy Pelosi thought she could just stay in position and not move and get things done that way. Neither party's ideas worked, and here's the problem. First, the president floated last night that he's going to do executive orders for other things other than your stimulus check. Don't you love that? It's like, we're here for the stimulus check. I'm here for the stimulus check. Like, show me the damn stimulus check. The president said he can send out money. Well, send me my stimulus check, Mr. President. He didn't mention that. After 2 weeks ago, he said he was going to give you a more generous check of more than $1,200. Now he's not even talking about your stimulus check. But he did talk about a lot of other things. 4 things in particular: payroll assistance, student debt forgiveness, mortgage for rent eviction moratoriums, which is absolutely incredibly great news. I don't care how much you want to jump in the hate comments and say you don't like eviction moratoriums. I have thousands of viewers who are facing eviction. This is a very great news if he does it correctly. He can do it. And then FPUC, which he legally, absolutely, categorically cannot do. Well, the president, in the comments that I obtained by overnight, is the complete transcript from the White House. And the transcript included comments from reporters after a lot of broadcast news reporters' channels cut away. They ran his comments, and then they cut away, and they didn't stay with the reporters. So the reporters asked the president, are you concerned about the legality of these executive orders? Question. Answer, no, not at all. Because there are questions that they may be found to be illegal. No. If someone, you always get sued. This is the president answering. I mean, everything you do, you get sued. I was sued on the travel ban and we won. I was sued on a lot of other things and we won. We'll see. You'll probably get sued, but people feel that we can do it. Go ahead. That was the president's answer. He also said right before that the reason why the executive order was not issued on Friday, even though he said it was going to, was that the lawyers are trying to draft it. And then there's this. I don't know if I can jump fastest to it, but I'm going to tell you what... I do. I'm good with my fingers today. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer had a press conference yesterday that no one covered in broadcast news. I obtained the transcript. This was after everything fell apart. And Nancy and Chuck said that they had a legal victory in court yesterday about stuff that Republicans were doing that was not lawful. And we won that. And today in the McGowan case, there was a district court in Bank. That means a whole court voted 7-1 in favor of the House, staying strong in order to bring back the case, which they were trying to defeat us, the Republicans. And now that case will be heard. So we're pretty happy about our court decisions as we go along, and we just want to share that. We had 2 victories last night. We won in court on both attempts by the Republicans to challenge the proxy vote. What does this mean, LALATE? This is so juicy. It means that we have to hope that the president gets those executive orders out fast, because there's no challenge in a court until he puts them out. And the moment he puts those executive orders out, which he represents is going to be this next coming week, there's going to be litigation filed. It's going to be filed by the Democrats or the House of Representatives, or it's going to be filed by state attorney generals, likely California and New York, to say, hey, how dare you order me to do stuff? You have no authority to do it under FPUC, and they don't. He absolutely has no authority. That will immediately annihilate, destroy, end Mark Meadows' idea that he does not have to negotiate for your livelihood because the president can just write up unlawful executive orders. Executive orders is Mark Meadows' backdoor default for not being able to get negotiations done. He's spending 2 hours a day and he's not getting things done. And ultimately, by defaulting to executive orders, when those executive orders are invalidated later this week by a court, which they will for FPUC, the president has no legal authority under the Constitution, as forbidden under the Constitution, to issue money at any regards. The issuance of money is only done by act of Congress. The president has no executive authority to ever issue money. That only comes from act of Congress. So that's going to happen. and that will push the Republicans back to the negotiating table as early as the end of next week. Really good news. Now, Nancy, what are we going to have to do to get Nancy back to the table? Well, Nancy's problem is that she has this ridiculously inapplicable, should not have been in there, massive allocation of nearly $1 trillion of money for states. Yes, I understand some states are hurting, but ultimately the Republicans saw this as a problem. And what they saw was that some of these states had economic problems before the pandemic that were exasperated by the pandemic, and now those states want to bail out. And the states and the Republicans say, hey, I'm not going to bail out to these states. The president had very clear messages yesterday in his press conference that the Democratic bill's problem was the offering of big bailouts to states. He didn't talk about problems of FPUC. He didn't talk about problems with rent assistance. He didn't talk about problems of your check. He didn't talk about anything that I talk about on his channel. He didn't talk about problems of hazard pay. I mean, this is what's really great news. He talked about exactly what really has a problem in this bill. A big bailout of states that is not urgent, that is not time pressing, is not now, and has nothing to do with, guess what? You. It has nothing to do with you. And so Nancy Pelosi made the really bad strategic error to put a big financial amount of money. It's the vastest sum of money in the second stimulus package deal from the Democrats, this bailout of states, to put it in there and make Republicans go, oh, no, it's too expensive, and that ultimately killed your check. When she realizes that, which is likely going to be in the next few days because everyone's hammering her on it, both Democrats, Republicans, the president, and the cabinet, they're saying, don't put that in there. We will deal with the states at another time, which we should. Then there could be made progress. She issued a statement late last night, and I obtained the statement, and she actually admits exactly what I just said. Now, she doesn't admit she's going to take it out, but she admits that this was the problem about why the deal could not be done. She said, well, this is for Schumer. She stood with Chuck Schumer. Well, thank you for coming. There was a disappointing meeting. We reiterated our strong terms of our offers. We came down $1 trillion from our top number was $3.4 trillion. I mean, it was too much money. The first stimulus package was $2 trillion. They came up. They go up $1 trillion from their top line number, which was $1 trillion, and that way we begin in the middle. Unfortunately, they rejected. They said they couldn't go much more above the $1 trillion, and that was very disappointing. Nancy cut her number and said Thursday that they were about a couple $100 billion apart. Well, guess exactly what was a couple $100 billion apart? This massive bailout of states. It has nothing to do with your check. It's strangleholding your check. It's strangleholding the negotiations. The bottom line is very simple. There's only one or two choices. Choice one is to negotiate for them. This is Chuck Schumer talking. Two, they don't say that. They don't want to do that. And the other way is figuring out something else. So we're asking them again to be fair and meet us in the middle. Now, this is his statement late yesterday. We're asking them again to be fair, to meet us in the middle, not a my way or the highway attitude, which they seem to have, and which we can really get this done, because there are some areas we didn't come to agreement on things, but we can narrow our differences and see where there are. So hopefully you can think about it and come back and be willing to meet us halfway. Now, these are comments by Chuck Schumer after everything went astray yesterday. So these are good comments suggesting that they're willing to come back. Nancy Pelosi says, the first four of those are in our legislation, the health. It's disappointing now that this marks the 12th week that we passed the HEROES Act. So the health of our children, are we far apart? Yes. Can we find some common ground? Yes. We can come back on our number. Not come back on our number of children who are fed, but the length the legislation lasts? Yes. I just say that to give you an example of how far apart we can make change. The big issue to make change, though, is get that massive bailout of states. The great news, as you sit here, if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, or Railroad benefits, is that your check is agreed upon. They've agreed upon your check. Your check is not a lot of money in the $3 trillion Democratic stimulus package. Your check is agreed upon in the HEALS Act, although they wanted to pay you $500 for dependents, and even switching $500 from dependents to $1,200 for dependents is nothing. It's not a lot of money in a stimulus package when you're talking about a $1 trillion or so bailout of states. Wow. So what does this mean, LLA? Boy, I just feel like this is whiplash, LLA. What's going on? So the great news is that if the two parties realize what really is at the problem, that you can't solve things by executive order with the exception of eviction moratoriums, and that you can't hold up the relief of the American citizen who can't make rent, can't pay bills, can't get water and gas, needs a stimulus check. You can't hold them up because you want to bail out big states who have a lot of liquidity, other options. States can go get loans from the Federal Reserve. States can do a lot of things that you and I can't do. If the Democrats realize that and the Republicans realize that, then you're going to have a deal. And I think that's likely to be revealed to them in the next 4 days. When the president issues executive orders next week, the litigation is filed immediately to invalidate most of them, FPUC and the other ones. The Democrats realized that the state bailouts was the tip of the iceberg of where the problem was, and that everything that is for the American citizen can get done in this package right now. You're going to have a deal. Coming up later today is more great news, well, good news, or however you want to phrase it, about why this is going to change very quickly in the positive, is hazard pay, FPUC at 4:30, and rent assistance at 5. And then coming up tonight is LALATE evenings. Please go to the front of this channel and hit that subscribe button. I mean, I'm literally updating you with stuff by the minute, even when I'm not recording. There was one person who said something about 2 hours ago in a video that said that Nancy and Chuck issued a statement after negotiations yesterday and said this and talked about it for almost 10 minutes, and people were very excited about it. The problem is that the statement was not made then. The statement was made earlier Friday before the negotiations fell apart. Now, it's that sort of confusion that's out there, and I'm trying to clarify things for you. I'm also keeping you up to date about anything that may happen over the weekend by the minute, because executive orders, anything like that, could be issued at any time. So please hit that subscribe button and that alert button. Stay positive. Thank you for your really, really kind remarks overnight. It was a difficult Friday. It was a difficult Saturday morning. You saw my expression. Someone said, "You look really tired." I said, "No, I'm really pissed, and I'm trying not to show it." Clearly, you see I've gotten over that now. And so let's stay together. Let's stay motivated, and see you shortly. Stay with LALATE for more.